media products. So these are some of the ways that it uses typical conventions of other horror trailers. So firstly, the clown character that we use is a stereotypical horror character, and it's also seen in Stephen King's horror film It, and is quite a famous character, well known. The trailer itself is also based around the theme of murder and death, which is shown through the titles here, where it says Mystery Deaths. And the titles also create a sense of fear and worry, and they kind of build up from sort of an innocent headline of the circus is coming to town to then police warning, stay inside. So that's another classic kind of building up suspense and reaching kind of fast-paced ending. The circus itself is quite a creepy setting and location, and can be identified as a kind of horror location setting. There's also very fast-paced editing and fast cuts, which is another classic convention of horror trailers. So there's the main antagonist and the villain, which is another kind of general thing that horror trailers have. There's a wide range of fast and close-up shots of the clown and its face to kind of create fear and shock the audience. This clip here of when the man is running, again, it evokes a sense of fear and that something is going to happen. He's running away from something that's building up. The creepy clown is iconography, can be related, again, is fearful, scary. And then here there's a point of view shot where we see the person who's holding the camera, we see their hand. So it's a bit like paranormal activity, kind of bringing it into real life situation and kind of putting the audience into, like putting it from their point of view, which is scary. And also the title here, Coming to a Town Near You, evokes fear from the audience because it's addressing them directly. In terms of sound effects, there's someone screaming at the end, which is a really classic sound effect that you hear in horror films, and also an evil laugh. There's also a change in music, so it goes from quite a jolly kind of circus-themed song to like a lot scarier and a lot more fast-paced. And that goes with the beginning shots of the circus, which are quite innocent. Nothing's going on, it's just the audience walking and daylight and greenery, and it's not scary at all. And there's a real like change of lighting. So in terms of how developed typical conventions of horror, here the trailers we have, because every horror trailer has titles, but to kind of change it up and do something different, we have created these kind of designed ones that have newspaper clippings, quotes, and headlines to kind of do something different, and it's quite a unique way of doing it, and has adapted it to fit our trailer as more of a kind of art house horror. We've also layered up our music to kind of create something different, and again go with the whole art house thing of trying to do something a bit different to the normal, typical conventions. So these are some of the ways that our trailer challenges the forms of conventions of real media products. So because it's an art house trailer, it does challenge actually, and so there are no appearance of any weapons or blood or gore, so it's not very intense in that kind of way. It's more of a slightly psychological thing. We're also only really introduced to one or two characters, and there's no dialogue or any kind of group of teenagers going into a forest. And, there's also a lot of colour, which goes with the circus theme, and is quite unconventional in that it's usually very dark in a horror trailer, and there's a lot of smoke and darkness. And also the narrative isn't very clear, and it's quite hard to follow. But this was kind of to keep the audience guessing, and also to kind of give them, make them question what is going to happen, and make them want to actually see the film. The titles are quite simplistic, and with this sort of design here, it's quite arty and would appeal to that kind of market. There are also quite fast cuts from the very beginning instead of kind of building up to it, and it's very intense to watch. We wanted to create a kind of bewildering effect on the audience. There's also no shots of anyone being killed or injured, but there are hints that he is evil. So he might not be seen actually killing anyone, which is what we would usually see in a horror trailer. But things like this shot here, where it changes to red, this is kind of immediately suggesting that in some way he is evil. And also the colour red kind of indicates maybe loosely to blood and that kind of thing. So this is, in what ways does your poster use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? So in terms of my poster, the way it uses typical forms and conventions, there's one main image, which is kind of, there's also a lot of blank space, which is quite typical of a horror poster, and it kind of, it's not letting on too much, and there's also review quotations and ratings. There's a billing box, production company logos, and there's a tagline here, so it's directly addressing the audience, the person who's looking at it. The titles also stands out quite well, and it's quite large, so it's eye-catching. In terms of developing forms and conventions, because it's an art house, we wanted to kind of include some artwork onto the image. So I've done this kind of linear design using InDesign, and this also relates to the trailer itself, which has this design, and also my website. There's also quite a lot of blank space, which is slightly different. It's not very busy looking in terms of there's nothing going on here or here. It's quite simple in that sense. And also the stars are hexagons instead of, There's also no actor names or no huge references to the director or the producer or the author, which usually has been seen in Woman in Black poster and stuff like that. It is quite bright, but it does go with the overall colour scheme of all the media products put together. But it is quite bright and slightly cheerful looking, but I think the black background balances this out. In what ways does your website use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? So it challenges it in that there is no access to a gallery or any kind of section about the cast, the crew, the soundtrack, the press. This is again to kind of remain slightly ambiguous and kind of keep the audience guessing as to what the film is actually about, which should make people want to see it. It has got a billing box, but again, there's no actors' names, director name, producer name. There's a release date and there's social networking buttons. And it's also very in keeping with my poster design, so it's got all the same fonts, imagery, billing box, everything like that. Okay. How effective is the combination of your main product and ancillary texts? So these are my three media products. So the colour scheme is very consistent, and there's a kind of a theme of blue, yellow and red, which came from this image here of the mask, because this is like seen a lot in the trailer over and over again. So on the titles here, there's a blue, a yellow and a red here, and there's also here. And also the colours in the hexagons, the stars, are also in keeping with this, which creates a strong sense of branding, and it will be quite memorable and recognisable. What have you learned from your audience feedback? So we filmed a vox pop, and these are some of the kind of results we got from some of the questions. So one of the questions was, what is your favourite horror film and why? And we did get a few people who said they didn't like horrors because they were too scary. But they also like to be shocked, and also here someone said that they like Sixth Sense because it manages to subvert many typical conventions of horror genre film. So it's clear that people do like horror films that are slightly different and don't follow the kind of classic, slightly cheesy, obvious horror films. So we also asked what do they like and dislike about horror films. So it was quite unbalanced in that some people said that they don't like how unrealistic it is, but then some people said that it's too realistic and it's too scary if it is. So I think in our trailer it's realistic in that it has the newspaper articles and it could technically happen because it's not anything supernatural or anything, but then at the same time the clown could be seen to be supernatural, so the audience isn't quite sure, but I think this kind of balances it out. They also like the thrill, so the fast-pacedness of our trailer will help with that. And people generally said that they can be quite cheap and tacky and cheesy and quite predictable, so again, I think by being an art house trailer, we've kind of tried to kind of break as many possible conventions while still being a horror trailer. So when asked what do they expect to see in a horror film, mostly a lot of suspense, blood and guts, and also some sort of killer. So we've got the clown who's the killer, so and also expect to be made to jump. So there's a couple of points in our trailer that would make the audience jump. And also people expect to see real life situations, so again the newspaper clippings kind of hit home as kind of, it could be real. So we asked some people, how do you feel about clowns? And actually a lot of people actually said that they don't mind clowns, which was we were a bit worried that they wouldn't be scared by our character, but at the same time, I think with films like Stephen King's It, I think a lot of people still find them quite creepy. Someone did say that they are the saddest thing on earth, yet try to be funny, and that they are really freaked out by clowns. So I think it kind of depends, but because I think we've made the clown look quite scary, we could manage to change those people's opinions, and so that they don't find them funny and good for kids' parties. So we also asked, what props do you relate to horror when they think of a horror film? And quite a lot of people actually said scary masks, and the clown mask is a very prominent kind of visual thing in our trailer, and it's seen in a lot of the shots, so I think this will really like evoke fear in the audience. They also expect to see blood and knives and weapons, which we don't have, but I think people are thinking of this, what they think of when they think of a horror, and we don't want it to be a classic horror. So by not showing them what they expect, I think that could be really effective and equally scary. And asking them about what storylines do you like or expect in a horror. A lot of people kind of said, someone said like a group of teenagers going to the forest, that kind of thing, and then a murderer. So I think a lot of people said quite a similar storyline, so I think our one is quite different with the clown, and so I think by kind of going against what people expect, again, I think this will be effective. We also did questionnaires with our classmates watching it. Our first draft of our trailer to see what we could improve on, and a lot of people said that the beginning shots were too light and not very scary or threatening, which we took on board, but we also wanted to kind of build up a kind of suspense, and I think by starting with establishing shots being quite light and then getting darker and darker, it will build up quite nicely. So we didn't change that too much, but we did move some things around. They also said that they thought the clown was introduced too early and needed to be more towards the end. So we did actually cut a little bit of the beginning of the clown walking, just so that he was slightly introduced, because that shot it looks really effective as a first shot, but we cut it down so that the audience isn't completely introduced to him at the beginning. They also said that they liked the variation between slow and fast, so we actually went back and kind of made sure there was even more of a kind of range of both slow motion and also sped up shots to kind of create quite a kind of bewildering, crazy trailer to watch that's quite kind of intense and in your face. They also liked the titles, but suggested the newspaper cutting idea, which is what we actually did, because it was a really good way of kind of giving a storyline without giving away too much, but hinting at what is going to happen. Because at this stage there wasn't really much of a storyline, it was all just shots after one another. And in the future it would be beneficial to get feedback from people outside of media class that have a kind of fresh pair of eyes, so they kind of, who haven't seen it before, because I think that would be better. So if we went back in time, we'd do that. How did you use media technologies in the construction and research planning and evaluation stages? So in the construction of our trailer, we started off using Final Cut, but then we had difficulties because we shot on a digital camera. It was really hard to convert the footage, so we actually decided to go with iMovie. And in this we were able to add transitions and also effects into our text. We were also able to add the titles as JPEGs, which was quite useful. We were also able to overlay our music, so we were able to play 2 songs at once, and that's how we got our soundtrack in iMovie. We were also able to adjust the speed and also adjust the look of our shots, so we could decrease the brightness so that our establishing shots weren't as innocent and a bit more scary. I also, for my poster, I use InDesign, and this was a really useful piece of software to use, and I actually used it for the titles here as well. And it's how I got this effect on here and also up here, using the line tool, and I also use the hexagon tool to do this. and I was able to keep all the fonts the same. I used Photoshop for my website design, where I cropped parts of my poster and then inserted them into this Photoshop document and filled the background black, and also added this image here. So it keeps the consistency of my poster and they relate quite well. One of the main things I did was add a release date of the film, and also social networking site buttons to make it look like a website and not a poster anymore. I also added the space, which is ready to put our trailer, insert it into that box, which is where the trailer will be. In the research and planning stage, I use SlideShare quite a lot to kind of document both poster analysis, also to horror genre research, so all this kind of thing. Also used it to put photos and anything to kind of document everything we were doing. And this was also planning for our trailer and shooting. I also used Windows Movie Maker to edit our Voxbot and put all the clips together, and also add text to put the question onto that, which was then put on YouTube. And YouTube was also used to research. This was research for sound effects, so laughing clowns and stuff like that, and also to get the idea of a clown character and see what's actually out there on the internet about clowns. Also found this music video on YouTube which had a clown character, which was useful to take inspiration from. And we were also able to watch like a range of horror trailers on YouTube. Blogger, I used a lot to kind of here, like I've noted down things and I've been able to write posts to kind of document my progress, and also to, so I can refer back to all the research I've done and also the planning, so it's quite a good way of being organised. And I also use eBay to research when buying our costumes and our masks. It was a really good way of kind of finding out what we wanted and also getting a good price and stuff like that. And also communicating with the sellers to get it on time so that we could start filming. And then this evaluation was made on OpenOffice and PowerPoint, but mainly OpenOffice.